Hello, crafty people. It's time to color. I hope you guys are excited about this. So what I did was, this is Dorothy and Toto from Wizard of Oz images that I have drawn. And I had a request for some skin tones and fur. So I know it's going to feel like, for those who are popping in, that I've already colored. You're like, what? Look, she's already got a head start. But here's what I want to tell you about that. And that is that I didn't think that we would have time to do everything once we start talking about the skin tones. So I wanted to go ahead and get a little bit of color on this girl ahead of time, because when you do skin tones, if you only do the skin, you don't get a true feeling for the shade of color that you have until you color in the clothes. I mean, it'll look like the skin is really dark, but it's really not in comparison once you add the color to the outfit. So I'm just getting some color into these real quick so that you'll be able to see that. Hey Beth, hey Meg, hey Cheryl. Thank you for joining me. I'm just gonna quickly get this. I'm doing it kind of fast, so don't worry. I wanted to get a little bit of this outfit colored in. So I'm just scooting through this blue real quick, and then we're going to talk about the skin tones. We will finish coloring her up, because without the hair done and all that stuff, it's going to just, you're just not going to be able to tell the true skin tone colors. So I wanted to have it all colored in for you, but unfortunately my stomach started feeling kind of yucky and slightly nauseated, so I laid down earlier instead of finishing these. So we will have to do them together, which I'm sure you guys don't mind in the least little bit. I did write down the colors, so I will certainly tell you what colors I'm using for the blues and the white areas, and then we will do the red last. So I usually don't do red before I do a lighter color. Now, if it's a darker color, like I would do red before the blue, because it's a darker color and I won't have that much problem with it. But if I put red on her shoes, and then we do the skin tones in the light colors, we pick up that red and we are in trouble. Like, it's hard to save if you mess up that red. So that is why I only wanted to have the white and the blue done, and the red we'll do afterwards. So that's why I didn't do the red yet. And the hair, I thought if you guys wanted to see skin tones and fur, that you'd probably want to see the hair too. So I did not do the hair. I want to do that together. So I just have this one last color to blend all of this together, and we will be done and ready to go. I thought we'd start with the skin tones, and then we'll move to the dog. So I've chosen two different colors of skin tones for us to do tonight, so that you could see the difference between the two. They're two common colors that you see more people use. We can elaborate on that later with more of a African American skin tones at a later date. But right now I feel like that's a little bit advanced, the way that I color them. So I didn't want to do that tonight. I wanted to do that later. Oh, you like this set? Do you have this set, Cheryl? There's all of them. Scarecrow, Tin Man, Lion. there's all the pieces. I wasn't sure if you had them all. I know you've been following me for a long time. If you don't, they may be coming available in some form in the near future, so keep your eyes peeled for that information. You do. You have them all. I thought you probably did. I was pretty sure you did. I didn't know 100%, but I was pretty sure you had them. There will be new images as well. We're working on all of the business stuff in the background, so just I'll let you know as I have more information available, what's going on. So stay tuned, keep your ears peeled, make sure you're members of the group, make sure you're following the YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. Any of those above are fine. YouTube's the best one because everything will always be on YouTube. So we're going to start growing that YouTube channel pretty fast, I hope. We're going to start doing a lot more with it. So anyway, okay, so now we have, and we'll do her eyes with the same blue colors when we get to that part. So I'm going to take the two little dogs. These are the dogs we're going to do tonight. They're super cute. We're going to do one of them in a brownish color and one in a gray color. Thank you so much, Meg. So here's what we have. We have the two girls. This one is stamped once and this one is stamped twice. So as you can see, this one has thicker lines. People, if you don't have Sandy's images, I'm telling you, you're going to need them. Thank you, Cheryl. I wanted you to see the difference between if you stamp it one time and if you stamp it 2 times. So you can tell that the black lines are thicker on this second stamp, especially in this area right here. So just keep that in mind when you make your decision on whether you want to double stamp or not. So I just wanted you to know. Hey, Mom. Okay, so I've chosen a very pale sided. So typically when people use this, we have one color that we put all over the whole thing to wet the paper. I always use E00 unless I'm going with a Caucasian, an African American skin tone, and then that number changes. But all the other tan, light skin, a little bit darker, all of that, I start with E00. Hey, Deanne. Hey, Meg. RV95 is a common one that people use. They also use E04, but E04 is very dark, and I really want to keep this a little bit lighter. So so I chose RV95, and then we're going to use E11, E21, E00, and our cheeks are going to be R12. These will be lighter cheek colors. So we're going to do that one first, and then I will tell you what I chose for the second one and why. Long time no see. Well, we just got back last night from Vegas, so I haven't really been around. I'm going to zoom in. We're going to start with E00. Where are your images we can get? Oh, they're not available yet, but they're coming, Deanne. We're looking at maybe a month or so, maybe about a month out. We have to set everything up, so it's taken quite some time, but just hang in there because they will be available. Right now we're just sneak peeking what some of them, the previous images look like. And then we'll get into newer images and such when we have our grand opening. So I'm going to go around her eye, but not all the way inside those lines. So these lines here indicate that that's her skin, and the other is the whites of her eyes. So I'm just using my E00, and I'm adding just some plain color to the skin. So for right now, you can't get the images, but the ones I have duplicates of, I have been doing random lives during my Tuesdays and Thursdays. Randomly, if I color with the stamp set and I have an extra one, I've been doing a drawing and giving them away. Just so some of you get a sneak peek, some of you get a chance to get one early. So if I have them, we'll be doing that. I still have, I think, 3s. I'm a tease. You can't wait. It's going to be wonderful. Yeah, I am kind of teasing, but I'm sort of trying to let people know what kind of style they'll be looking at getting if they stick with Doux Designs, and trying to build up some following. So it is a bit of a sneak peek, and yes, I'm sorry about that, but that's how we get the word out. Okay, so next I'm going to start with the RV95 for my shadow area. So definitely going to have shadow up underneath her neck. So I'm going to put that in first so I don't forget. And then we're going to go around the hairline. So normally the hairline is where the hair hangs over your face, gives you a bit of a shadow. So we're going to add some in here for that. Now this one's really dark, so I'm not going to go like under her chin or anything like that. I might do a teeny bit over here on this side just to show the side of her face. Yes, this set is mine. I don't care the style. I love your drawings. Yay! I did draw this girl. So Dad is closing this as soon as possible. Oh, that's nice. That's good news, right? So we're going to do the inside of her ear. And then just a teeny bit right here. We'll come down and do the rest of the shape of the face later on when we get with lighter colors. This will be up underneath where her sleeves are and up along the side of her dress because her hand is behind her body, so there'll be shadow there. This signifies the elbow, this part of your arm. So I put a little line there so you could get an idea of, you know, where we are with the arm. And then her wrist is kind of hidden behind her hands, holding her skirt up. So a little bit of motion there. There we go. And now we're going to go along underneath her dress. All of this type of area is going to have shadows. So I'm going to do it a little bit thicker than we did up here at the top because it was just her hair, and down here it's more, there's more shadow under the dress. Notice how I don't do it like this. You don't ever want to do it square because that's not natural. The legs are shaped round, so you want to keep that round curve going as you're doing your shadow. So never square when you're doing people. And then the back of her ankle and along her shoes might have some shadow as well. Same on this side. So we're just going to put a bit of that in there. Oh, and I chopped her head off. Okay, so I don't usually come back in with this one, but if we end up with some of the shadow fading, we can always go back in. Sometimes that depends on what paper you're using. When I use Express It, I normally do 2 coats of ink because in order to get that vibrant, loud color on Express It, I have to do it twice. But on this hammer mill that I'm using right now, I only have to do it once. When you blend into the darker color that you put in there, you want to go along the edge to soften that edge, but don't do a whole lot over top of what you've already got, because if you do, that's how you lose that shadow area. If you just lightly touch and soften that edge, you'll keep that darkness up there and you won't have to do a second coat. So that's what I've learned in coloring over time. This part inside, we want that to stay darker. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that in. The outside will have a little bit more light. You can't see her ear on this side, so we don't have to worry about that. We put a little bit of dark here, so I'm just going to kind of bring that out just a tad on her cheek. And same thing down this one. I do a little bit more detail when I'm working on a face, because I want to make sure I get a lot of shadow and a lot of detail in the face. Sandy, did I tell you my grandbaby broke her collarbone? It's been rough. How do you get a 2.5-year-old to relax? Oh my goodness, that's terrible. I know that kind of stuff can happen though. She's rating a very high fever. See a surgeon April 2nd, not soon enough for, oh my goodness. That has to be rough, because I know Haley broke her collarbone and she's an adult. So yeah, I get it. That's crazy. I'm so sorry. I hope she heals quickly. So again, even down here, we're softening up against where we put that darkest color, just so we don't have a line there. So it's a very gentle, very light touch. Oh, she fell out of bed. Oh, poor baby. It's a very, very light touch. So maybe not even a 1. I mean, like, I'm barely touching the paper. It looks like I'm doing a lot, but that's because sometimes I'm not even touching the paper. It has to be a very light hand when you put it over top of that other one. So same with down here. We're going to start real close to that color. I do like to go over it at least once to mix the colors, but again, a very light touch, and then just the line where the colors blend, because you have to soften that up. We don't want to see this line right here. So we just have to work it until we get that line to go away. And it shouldn't be difficult, but if you put the ink down pretty thick, you might struggle a little bit. But just be patient with yourself. Give yourself some time to practice this, because that's how you build the muscle memory in your mind on how to do it, is by trying it over and over again. Once you get it down and you feel comfortable with it, then you don't really have to think about it. You just choose your colors and you just keep going. It makes life a lot easier, but it takes a lot of time to learn it. So notice how we have big white open spaces still? That's because we still have 2 colors to go. Before the last color, I like to put the cheek color in. So I will show that to you after this one. So this is E21. This one we're going to use a lot more of. This is going to be kind of the true-ish color. So there's going to be a whole lot more. So working down from that area, doing the same thing where you stopped with the last color and adding in a lot more of this color. Making sure we don't have that line, and then just building out from there. Again, this is a super light touch, not a heavy touch. I don't do a lot heavy touch on hardly anything. I do put a little bit around her nose, but only when I get to this point, and I don't build noses. I'm not a fan of the way that looks when it's done. If you like it, then by all means do it. But for me, I feel like when I try to build in a nose, it just looks silly. So I don't do it. I mean, this is a cartoon-ish type design. It's not a real person design. So I don't really need to have a specific nose. Now on her hand, I filled in all the color with this, with the E21. So I won't be going over that with the E00. I just want it to be the E21. I'm going to leave a little bit along the front of her foot down low for the lightest color. You don't like it either? Yeah, I really don't. I don't know why. Maybe I just haven't seen one that I just love, but for some reason, when I do that, I just feel like it looks funny, so I don't do it. But that is a personal preference. It doesn't mean that it looks bad when other people do it. It just means I don't like it when I do it. So you do what works for you. I put a little bit on with that second to the last color. You won't see that much of it. You probably won't even notice it after we finish, but that is about all I do. Okay, so this is the very light skin. The next one is going to be darker. This is R12. This is my cheek color. Now, because that skin tone's pretty light, I want that cheek color to be pretty light as well, which is why I didn't go with an E21 or 22, because I just want to add a bit of blush. Now, some people put a lot of pink on their cheeks, and that's fine. They probably wear blush too, but I don't wear very much of it, so I just don't really wear much makeup, so I don't really color much makeup on my girls. So it's kind of up to you on how much you want. So I'm filling in the rest of this, and I'm going to completely go over the pink to soften it up. That's why I do it before this layer, so that I can soften it with this E00. If you like rosy cheeks, use E21 or R21, R20, or R22. However pink you want them to be, choose one of those colors, and it'll work fabulously for you. Now, I'm just going to go back and forth on the arm just to fill in that one little spot that I left open. And then I am going to just touch the tip of her fingers. I don't know that that's really making any difference whatsoever, but it just makes me feel good. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of back and forth over this area down here where we left the white. And the only reason we would have to go over that multiple times is if we can see that line. But you want to be careful because you can wash out the color if you go over it too much. So there we go. That one will soften that up. And it's okay to see it a little bit, just not with a harsh line. So now we have this sweet girl with a very light skin tone. You can see the shadow under her hair, but it's not real obvious. You can see it here. You can see it here. But it's a very, very soft skin tone. It's super simple to do. It doesn't take that much time, and you just have to practice it over and over again. So now in comparison, the new colors we're going to use, I want you to be able to see them in comparison to what they would look like. So that's why I did two. And if we mess up anything, I got a third one just in case. All right. So those were the first set of skin tones. Now, because I have duplicate skin tone colors, I'll pull out the next set. I'm going to start with the E00, just like we talked about. But this time for the shadow area, I like to use, this is a little bit more my go-to these days. I like to use E13 instead of the RV95. and then E11. I never mess it up. E21, E00, and because it's a darker skin tone, we're going to use R21 this time. So you'll be able to see what the R21 looks like. It's a darker skin than I normally do. I normally use R12 on everything, but I want you to be able to see what it looks like, so we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to leave her kind of at the corner if I can, but we'll bring her back if I knock her out of the way. I do mess up sometimes, especially when I'm coloring something brand new or something I've never colored before. Sometimes I don't know that I technically would say I messed it up, but I definitely practice it on a sample before I do the one that I want. Those are the ones you use for skin tone. I like them. And we can, if you want to see it way more tan, we could do the darker tan on that other one I have open. Just let me know if you want me to do that as well. So again, this part right here is just going completely over the skin tone everywhere. Like on the face, on the ears, the neck. What we're doing is wetting the paper so the colors blend easily. I find it helps with skin tone, but I don't do it with everything. I most of the time, I only do this with skin tone. Not really sure if I know why. Samples are not messing up, it's preparation. Exactly, Meg. Exactly. These, I don't know why I do this with the skin tone, but don't really do it with anything else. The only other time that I actually color the whole thing with one color before I start to wet the paper is if I want to change the tone of the color. So sometimes I might put another color underneath it. Like if I wanted a smokier green or a smokier blue, I might put a gray completely underneath it before I start, and it'll change the tone of that color. So that's really the only time I do that complete underpaint like that. Just in case you were wondering why. So now we're going to go into E13, and E13 is going to be really dark, so don't freak out when I put it on here. It's going to be really dark. It's going to look very tan and not really skin tone color. It's a big difference between this one and what we're doing right now. A little bit more like the E04 that people use for skin tone. But the E04 has more of a pink base to it. This one is more of a brown base. So you would get more of a tan look out of this one and just a darker light skin out of the other one. So we're putting the base the same place that we put the RV95 earlier. Same areas, same everything. Because that's where I want the shadow to be on each, pretty much every time I color this girl, that's where I would put the shadow. So we're doing the same thing on this one that we did on the other. So we need up under here on her legs, and then remember we want to round that as we do it, just so it doesn't look funny, because we would not have any square legs, no square legs. And then a little bit in here. And you can already tell it's going to be a darker color. I mean, I can because I know what it looks like and I'm used to seeing it. You might not see it just yet, but I've gone as dark as like E15 for the dark area instead of E13 if I want the skin to be darker, and then I start leaving some colors out. Like the E00, I might use E21 instead, or E11. I just start getting the colors, keeping the colors darker. So E11 is next. And I did want to show you the difference between E13 and E04. So let's look at that on a scrap piece of paper that I have laying on my desk here. This is E04. And I want you to really be able to see how kind of pink that is? It's almost like a mauve color. And then E13 is like this. So when you look at that, you can see one is way more pink. So it's going to look like a brighter skin tone, and one is way darker. So I think it helps to see that side by side. Now I used the E04 as my basis for skin tone all the time for a very long time. And then I wanted to switch it up, and this is what I got to. So same thing here. You're going to lightly go over it once, and then you're just going to soften that line. I'm going to put a little bit more of this E11 just because I want to keep her skin tone darker. So following the same thing we did with, I think we were using E11 at this point as well after the RV95 on the other image. I'm going to, with this one, because I want to keep it darker, I'm putting a little bit of this darkness underneath her eyes where I didn't do that with the other one. And it'll give you an idea of how to keep that bone structure, a little bit more and keep it darker. These won't be real different. You have to go significantly darker for them to be really obviously different, but you'll be able to tell when they're side by side. Oh, you're welcome for that comparison. It's knowing what colors that are in the markers that you're deciding to use. So if you colored it and you got done and you said, oh, this is way too pink, then you need to pull in one of the darker colors. So when we get ready to use this E21, I want you to see how dark the E21 is. So the E11 has more pink and the E21 is more brown. So you still have to keep the pink skin tone in there. So I used the E11, which looks like a natural skin tone. And then the E21, it's pale. It's missing the pink. So it looks more tan. So I use the E21 sometimes. Normally with this one, I would use E51, but then it becomes very, very light, and I'm not a fan of really, really light skin tones, so I don't do that. But I want the E21 is the second to the last color. This one's going to get a whole lot of this E21. And she's going to look more tan. She's going to have less of a peachy look. The other one's going to have a lot of the peachy look. Now, one thing I see a lot of people do where they have a problem is when you do this outline right here along the bottom of her face to show the shadow on where her face would be curving due to her chin, make sure that you work that line that you left with the next color, because if you don't, then it makes it look funny. So you can tell on this one, I did the same thing, but you can't see that line. You don't want to see it when you're done. Yes, Dale is watching the whole time. Yep, he is. Yep, he's not practicing with me yet, but he is definitely watching. Yep, he is. You guys, I think he's going to be great. He has a lot of the artistic talent. He can draw as well, so he has a lot of talents. I don't think he's going to have any problem because he knows, he understands the color theories and the mixing, because for his costumes, he has to mix paints, and it's kind of the same idea. I mean, you don't mix them the same on paper, but what colors mix together is basically the same in all mediums. You know, when you need more, you'll know when you need more yellow, when you need more pink, when you need more brown, you know, you just kind of learn how to do that. Once you learn that part, the rest of it's way easier. Okay, this is R21. And this is going to be a much brighter cheek here. It's actually more, it's actually not that different. It's just more pink. I'm going to add a little bit of extra because I want her cheeks to be a little bit darker. I would never recommend doing little circles unless you want to leave little circles, unless you're doing it specifically for a look. But if you just do circles, then it's harder to blend them out. E00 is the last one. And we're just going to finish in our areas here, filling in the rest of that. Right around her eyes. Want to do her ear. And then we're going to go over her cheeks because we don't want to leave that harsh color. Soften that chin and around her mouth. And that should get us that cheeks. We need to soften this one up just a little bit more because it still looks kind of harsh. There we go. Much better. So now you're going to be able to choose which type of cheek you like better, which one you would want to use when you were doing it based on the way these two look. So like I said, this isn't going to be a huge skin tone change, but if you want to see the difference, this was the only way to do it. So there are a lot of combinations you can use. Here we go. As she dries, she'll get slightly darker, but for the most part, that is the difference between these two. And the biggest change was cheeks and the shadow color. So when I hold them up together, you can see this one is lighter, like significantly lighter than this one. When we put in the hair, you're really going to see the difference. So that's two. Let me show you real quick, just doing her face, how dark it would be if we went all the way to E15. 15, 13. We're going to use 11 and 21. We're going to stop at that. We're not going to use E00. We're going to use E00 instead as our base color. This is going to give you an idea of a much, much darker skin tone. So starting with E00 instead of E00. We're just going to wet the paper with this one. Already right off the bat, you're going to notice that this is significantly darker look right off the bat than what we had when we used the E00. And it's okay to change that color. You don't have to always use E00. You can change them up on what works best for you. Because we have the comparisons, it probably you won't notice it quite as much that her dress isn't colored because you'll be able to compare it to the other two. But this will give you an idea when we look at the skin tones, and then once we color in the hair and the rest of those other two girls, you'll be able to see how much different it looks once you color in all the clothes. So don't color it and then freak out because, oh no, this is way too dark, because it's not going to look that dark once you put in the clothing and everything. It kind of lightens the skin a bit. So don't freak out. Just keep going. Trust the process. E15, this is it's called suntan. This one is going to be way darker than what we saw earlier. So we're putting it in the same areas that we put the other color in. Just a teeny bit under her eye. I'm not going to go under her eye With this color, I only did that because I wanted to deepen her eyes. On the other one, I'm going to follow the first pattern that we did. Same thing, make sure it's rounded up underneath. Putting this real dark color in here. It's scary. It's scary. It's even more scary if you're doing like an African American color. But this is going to be a very dark tan. She's going to look like she was hanging out in the sun, you know, before the tornado came, and chilling in the backyard, probably in her cute little blue and white bikini, getting all tanned up. If she's anything, if you're anything like me, you tan is red, you burn, and then you're white again. I don't tan. Even when I try, I don't. E13 is next. You're going to have to earmark this live. It's going to be out on YouTube as well, and I'll leave it out there so you guys can rewatch it if you want. Now, E13 is also very dark. So when you blend this color, you don't want to go down too far because it's still very, very dark. That's okay because we're building dark skin tones. So don't freak out when you do it. Trust me, it's going to feel like it's too much. You're going to be like, oh no, it's going to be way too dark. But it's not. I'm not worried at all. I've done this color before. I know what it looks like. I know it's dark when I start. And I'm okay with that. And you will be too. Just practice it. So the first time I tried to color, that's me, no tanning here. The first time I tried to color African American skin tone, I went back and forth and back and forth. This is going to be my mess up now, Meg. You're going to hear my mess up. This is the one time I threw away an image. So I kept adding more colors because I was like, okay, well now it looks too brown. It looks tree-like. It doesn't have that light pale skin tone. I need to add more of that, and I need to add more of this. And I just kept going and going and going. And before I knew it, I could no longer see the face in I was so dark I couldn't even see the eyes or the nose, and I had to throw it away. But that's the one, that was when I was practicing. It was very unfortunate. Okay, so next color is going to be E11. And then we're going to put some blush color in there. So again, when you're going from the E15 to 13, you got to make sure you don't leave any lines in here. You can kind of see them right now. So I'm going to soften it until I get rid of those lines, because that's the important part, is that you're not showing a bunch of lines all over her face. Softening this. We're going to put a little bit on her nose. I just extend a little bit from where I left the art line. It's not a whole lot of detail. Her underside of her neck will not get any highlight because it's all in shadow. This one. Softening those areas. Don't do it too much. Don't oversaturate. If you oversaturate, you will wash out the color, because as these colors get lighter, they have more colorless blender in them. And the more colorless blender, the more it's going to wash out the color that you're doing. So remember, too much is not a good thing. So, but you can always darken the skin tone if you want. You know, if you get too much in there, you can always make it a darker skin tone. I mean, there's some things you can do to fix when you do that. But I would highly recommend letting it dry first, coloring the rest of the image, and then if you need to change anything on the skin tone, you can go back and do that later. All right, we got to have a little bit more of this color on her face. I don't think I have enough. So I'm going to add a little bit under her eyes on both sides. And then I'm going to soften that one line one more time. Now, for cheeks, I'm going to go even darker. I think I'm going to use R22. It's going to be significantly pinker, and I'm okay with that. Is pinker a word? More pink is probably what I should have said. It's going to be more pink. It's going to look funny. Look at how crazy that looks. But remember, we're not going to go to E00. We're only going to go to E21. So it's going to stay darker. So I'm going to start at the top just like I did with the other ones. Soften that and start filling in my color. This is going to be her base color. This is what I would be doing with the E00 if I wasn't making her a tan girl. We're going to soften that pink with this color. Soften those lines that we have on her face. Make sure we don't leave any funny lines in there. We go around her ear. Then we're just going to do this back and forth to soften those shadow areas. Same thing here. I'm still using that extremely light touch. Maybe a 1. Maybe. Very, very light. Now, when I hold these girls together, you'll see 3 steps of color. A very light Caucasian, and you can even do it lighter than I did if you want. But I'm not real good with light pastel. Light, medium, significantly darker. You see the difference between the 3 of them? So the process is the same. The only thing that changes are the colors. And the best way to see what the different Caucasian colors look like is to color everything else in the image exactly the same. So that's why these blue dresses are the same, the white is the same, the hair will be the same, the eyes will be the same, everything will be the same so that you can truly see what the skin looks like. When you switch up the colors of the outfits and the colors of the stuff, it gives you a different take on that image, and you can't see the true difference between them. So that is why I colored these the same. And I noticed that I didn't soften this line very well, so I'm gonna fix that real quick while I'm looking at it. Okay, because that was bugging me. All right, so now we've done the skin tones. We have 3 different colors. I'm going to do her eyes very, very simply, all the same. I have done them where I put all the striation of lines and all that stuff on them. We're not going to do that tonight. We're just going to color the eyes in a different way, a more simplified way. So I'm going to use B26. B26 I used on her dress as the shadow color. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this right along the top of her eyes. This very dark B26. She's going to look a little funny to start off with, but it's okay. The scariest part is doing this the first couple of times and feeling like, oh, I have royally messed this up. But just trust it. Don't give up. I can't tell you how many times I thought something looked terrible and then went to bed, because most of the time I color at night, went to bed, got up the next day and looked at it and was like, oh, you know what? I kind of like it. So don't give up. Don't give up. Keep going. Look at it the next day and make your judgment at that point. I want to put a little bit of this, not blue, but more like a tealish blue in her eyes, but her eyes are going to be like beautiful blue. They're going to be like that. Don't know if those are real eye colors, but we're rolling with it anyway. B16 is the second color I used on her dress. And this one, I'm going to hold the marker upright, as high upright as I can. It'll give me the finest line. And I'm going to extend from where I put that first line up there at the top. And then I'm just going to go around the bottom, leaving a little bit of light color there. Can I go off to the side? I will try. I will try. Okay. I lose a little control when I do that. So if I go outside the lines, you'll know why. Hopefully that was better. Let's do it on this one. I'm going to move these because there's a shadow on it. And I'll try to do it without holding the marker upright so much so you can actually see what I'm doing. So here we go. Around. It's going to be a thicker line, but that's because I'm not holding the marker upright. So we just have to do what we have to do so you guys can see. There we go. Same on this one. Need to go to sleep now. Thanks for the comparison color. Oh, you're welcome, Meg. Well, you can always watch the replay if you want. Okay, going around the outside again and a little bit down from where the darkest color is. Same thing over here and around the bottom.
Cheryl asked her if you can bring up the camera happy color.
Bring it up to the camera. Oh, yes, I can totally do that. Yes, I can. So now we have two different colors on there. So we have the darkest one at the very top and the second one around the eyes. And I did the same thing for each one. It's pretty much the same. This one I put a little bit more in there, but that's because her skin tone's darker, so it's okay for her eyes to be a little darker. The third color I used on her dress is B02, and I'm not going to use B01, but that was the lightest color I used on her dress. I'm just going to use B01 to finish her eyes. So what I want to do is I just want to kind of run it along here and sort of blend that color in. So this is, I am probably touching this like barely touching the paper. I want it to be very, very light. Can you see it? When we build in when we color the pupil back in with the black multi-liner, it will make those stand out even better. So, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. We have to let the eyes dry before we do the multi-liner. So blending those out just a little bit. There we go. Now we have all three girls with pretty blue eyes. It's a super simple way to do eyes. I'll hold it up one more time. There you go. It's a super simple way to do eyes, but it definitely gets the impact in there. So giving it a second to dry, I'm going to pull my multi-liner out. I usually use 0.5, but these girls' pupils are so small that I'm going to use a 0.25, much smaller. And then I'm just going to go over that pupil. The little black line that was in there already. You can already see the difference when I hold it up. See how now you can see everything in her eyes? So much better than this. Then we just color it in. I use the multi-liner a lot. I don't go over her mouth or her nose because then that makes her mouth look funny and it kind of stands out and it just looks weird. So I don't ever do that. But now, look, you can see her looking at you. It like makes a big difference to do just the eyeball. So here's this one up close as well. Super cute. Okay, so I know that there were some that wanted the fur, skin tone, the fur for the animals. So we're gonna now put these aside, but after I finish the puppies, I'll come back and color the hair. So if you want to see the hair, stick around. I'll also do the red accent afterwards as well. I'm going to set those aside. This is my problem, but I think I will keep trying. Just keeping light-handed. Yes, that is something that you learn. That is a learned technique, is holding your pen lighter or softer, when to do a heavier touch. That part is definitely a learning curve that people have to practice. Here are our puppy dogs. So cute, so small. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more so you can see them. I'm glad you like the samples. So their eyes are very, very tiny area, but I left a little area in there that we could put color in so the eyes stand out as well. So we are going to go ahead and do the tongue and the eyes first, just so we have that color in there. And I'm going to use the R21 for the tongue, and I'm going to use the same blue colors for his eyes, the same blue color, one of them. So I'm going to use the B02. It's really light. I don't want his eyes to look sunk down in there. So for both of them, I'm just going to touch that little white area. It's just going to put a teeny bit of blue in there. It's not dark, but it will help when it's all colored and done. But again, we're going to have to use the multi-liner for his eye. But I just added a teeny bit of blue so it wouldn't be white. And we're going to do the tongue in this R21. You could use a darker color for a shadow if you wanted, but it's so tiny that I don't think it's important. Inside his ears, I'm going to go ahead and just put a teeny bit of this pink inside here. We're going to cover it up with the color that we're coloring him, so you're probably not going to see a whole lot of it. But I just want it to be in there so that his ears look a little bit different than the rest of the area. So I chose two colors. I chose a brown dog and a black dog so that you can kind of see the process go twice. So in this image right here, when I drew it, what I had going on in my mind, and this is kind of a benefit that you don't get out of a lot of people because you don't know what the artist was thinking. But when I was drawing this, I gave you these little pieces right here to show you the direction I want the fur to go if I were going to be coloring it. So we are going to follow all of these cute little fuzzy lines I gave you. And then this area down here it's going to be a smoother look. It'll be a little furry here, but this will be smoother than this. That's why they're separated with this little bit of fur. And as I do it, you'll see and you'll get what I'm saying. But I wanted to explain that before we started. Since Dorothy's dog was gray, black, we're going to do the black first. And then we'll move into the brown and afterwards. Because I know sometimes somebody will show it to you in one color and then you're like, well, but how would I do it with this? Or how would I do it with something else? So I'm just going to give you two samples so you can see how that's done. So for his nose, I want it to be black. So I'm going to start by just doing the underside with this W10. Same thing with the sides of his mouth, just to kind of get that deep color in there. Now, I would be using my 110 marker because it is the warm black, but my marker died. So I have to get a new one. I don't have one, so we're going to use W10. I'm going to start with these areas right here, like over the face, where the artist drawn lines are, just following those lines. I'm not going to do a whole lot there. I just want these lines. I'm just kind of outlining these lines, just so I have some of that depth in there. And then on a few of these ones down at the bottom, I'm going to start going in the direction of the fur that I drew. Same thing here, doing with these little flick motions. So if you can't, you have to use the flicking motion on this one. Flicking or brush stroke, whatever you want to call it, it's a flick. But whatever you want to call it, that's what I'm doing. From the bottom down here, I'm adding those in too. And not beside each other. They're definitely apart from each other. He'll look funny to start off with, but it will come together. We're not going to do any smooth blending coloring with this little dog at all. That's how we get the furry look, is those brush strokes. If you're doing those tiny flicks, if you will, then you're going to get that fur look. Small, tiny brush strokes. They look funny to start off with because they're just everywhere. But in time, they will be exactly what you want. So make sure you hold your marker upright. I'm trying not to so you guys can see what I'm doing. So my brush strokes are much thicker than they would normally be if I was coloring this by myself. But I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So on the underside of the dog is where I'm putting all of these little brush strokes. Even on these lines that I put on the inside. Just small brush strokes in there. And you'll see they're not connected. They're just lines all over in there. Now, I'm going to do the same thing coming from his collar. They're not going to be side by side, but they're going to start at his collar and head in the same direction as this fur. Don't change directions. If you change directions, it looks funny. It doesn't look cohesive. So make sure that you're following the fur lines that you want to go with. So that's probably a decision you need to make right away, or follow what the artist put in there, and that will help. And I just start off by doing all of this at one time. I get all my dark lines in there, and then we're going to go from there. So along here, this is the bottom, the part that's sitting on the ground. So I put a lot more down here towards the bottom. And we're going to do the same thing in this area right here. Still brush strokes, but definitely thicker. Over here, on the back side. And then his little pads, you can decide what color you want them to be. I think I'm going to make them black, so I'm just going to color them in with this darkest color. Those little pads on his feet. And then his tail, his fur's going everywhere on his tail, and that's okay. I do want to add one more thing, and that is right up here where the ears are behind his head. I want to add just a little bit more dark back there so that you'll be able to see this separation from the fur on his face and his ears when we get to that point. that's it for the W10. Now we're going to use W8. I don't generally use the numbers that are side by side. I would not go to a 9 from here because you won't really be able to see much difference, and we need to see the layers of fur. So you need to go a little bit lighter each time. So this is the W8, and I'm going to start in the same area, and I'm going to try and do my brush strokes in between wherever I put the last ones. So not over top, but in between. I'm going to start building this part of his fur out for his nose. We're going to go into the nose up a little higher because we want that nose to stay fairly black. And then we're going to start doing the same thing we did. We're just going to go build in the brush strokes, some a little further, some a little closer, but trying not to do them in the exact same spot as I did that last time. I'm going to also start doing some from his mouth down. Notice I did not color the rest of his lip because I want to do that with a significantly lighter color so you'll see it better. This looks like this is tedious work. Whenever you're doing fur, it's tedious because it's brush strokes the whole time. I'm going to put a little bit up here going kind of crazy. He's got crazy hair. It's all about the brush strokes. The more brush strokes you do, the more furry he will look. And he looks funny now. Just be patient. I promise we'll get there. Don't give up. Keep going. Because he'll look funny. But when you get there, you're going to be so happy. Remember, in between. Oh, I just know I'm going to color over that doggy bone. What would you do if you colored over the collar doggy bone? I would grab a gel pen of color, so gold or silver or whatever, and draw my little doggy bone in. Then I wouldn't have to worry about the fact that I colored over it, and nobody would know the difference. So that would be my fix. So now I'm doing some brush strokes up, some brush strokes down, but keeping them in the same direction. So he looks a little funny, but he's coming together nicely. I'm going to move these over because I think it's focusing more on that than the image. I am going to do some up from his little paws. And then a few on his tail. I want to keep his tail pretty furry. This process always looks super crazy while you're in the middle of it. Now, I am going to go to W7, and the reason why I jumped right to the next number is because this is when you start seeing a significant change between colors. That's W8. This is W7. See the big difference between that? Once you get to 7, it starts lightening up a whole lot. But this is 9. So that's 9 and that's 8. They're just too close. But once we start using this 7, it's going to be much better. So test your colors. Like we always say, test your colors. Make sure you know how dark and light they're going to be. W7. Same process, exactly the same. We're going to be extending further. And we're just putting in those brush strokes. Under the eyes, we're going to start filling that in. There's only one more color. I want to keep the whites around, the part right around his eyes, pretty light for the last color. Keep these going in the direction of the hair. This part's coming in. And then we're going to go from the nose out. Going to color in the rest of his nose. going to color in most of what's underneath his chin just because it would be more of a shadow here. And then the rest of it I'm going to do in brush strokes again. And I'm going to try not to color in his doggy bone. So up from the bottom, down from the top. And you're just trying to follow the furry lines. The artist should give you some idea. If they don't, then just choose the direction you want the hair to go and stay with that same direction the whole time. I'm going to start filling in his feet because they're going to stay darker than the rest of him. And we need to get some in his ears now. We'll leave the last color to go over the pink. So getting some more fur going on here. Now we're going to fill it in because we have, this is our last color. We have W5. Now I jumped from 7 to 5. So definitely a big difference. I want to be able to see these brush strokes I worked so hard on. Now we're going to go in there and put this over top of any area that has white. Notice I am not blending back and forth. I am just putting one light coat of this gray wherever the white is. That keeps my brush strokes, it keeps my fur, but it fills in the white part. So around his eyes, I'm going to do that just a little bit more. I don't want it to look funny. So I went over the sides of his eyes more than once, just so it was dark enough. Following this hair. No blending, just filling in the white parts. When we add the white gel pen to his nose, it will stand out and look super cute. Same thing here, just putting a little bit of this color over top of the white areas in the same direction that I did the brush strokes. Up from the bottom, down from the top. Not blending, not going back and forth, just getting color in here. Down, 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 up. And then the tail, we'll finish that one. So now we have this very furry dog. I'm going to make his collar red. I'm only going to pick one color red. So I'm going to pick R46. Going to put that in here. I don't want to do one straight line because his fur is going over it. So in some spots, I'll have it a little bit thicker and in some spots a little bit thinner. And that's okay because that's the way I want to show the fur over his collar. So the white gel pen is the one that I'm going to use in order to show his nose and the bone. But before I do that, I need to grab my multi-liner and draw in his eyes again because you can't really see them all that well. So 0.25, and I'll hold this up close as soon as I'm done. I just need the pupil part of his eye colored in. So you can already see the difference just looking at that side. If I wanted to keep his nose really dark, I could go over that as well, but I'm not going to do it in this case, but you definitely could if you wanted his nose to be significantly darker. So maybe we will for like the little nostril sides of his nose. So cute. We need a little bit more on the upper part of his eye. Otherwise, his eye looks funny compared to the other. Now, the lighting made this look way lighter, but when I hold it up, you're going to like it a lot more. So this is the white gel pen, and what I'm going to do is build in this little bone shape and the connection to his collar so you can see it. Oops, I got his bone off just a little bit. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. There we go. It's connected to his collar. So now he has a little bone charm on his collar. He needs a little bit of white over his nose. Not real dark, just a little bit. And he needs the whites in his eyes. When I hold him up close so that you can focus it in, you can see all of the different fur. This gives him texture, it gives him fur look, and from a distance, he looks fabulous. If you don't like it quite that fur, you can go over it one more time with the W5 and it'll soften it just a little bit if you don't want your dog that furry. But I like it, so I'm going to leave it just like that. Now, what if we were going to do brown? So we want the brown colors to show up dark to light very well. So I have chosen to go as dark as E49, then we're going to go to E29, then we're going to skip to E25 because 29 and 27 are too close. I need a bigger difference. And then we're going to go to 23. Those are going to be the 4 colors. And we kind of talked through the steps already, so we're going to talk through them just slightly faster this time. I will leave him over here so you can kind of see him while we work on him. So this is the darkest color. This is the one that we follow just the artist drawn lines at first to get that depth inside our image. So same process. His little mouth. And then we're starting with the brush strokes from where the artist gave you the design of what they were trying to represent for fur. So going this way. And then the ones on the outside, just put a few of them in there. You can do this as quick or as slow as you want. It's up to you. It's your design and it's your coloring, and you can decide how you want it to look. For me, I usually do it slower just so I can place my brush strokes the way that I want them to be. But once you get kind of used to that, you can do them a lot faster. So let me show you. So this is kind of following that pattern. Right there, up this way. You can always go down or up, your choice. Following all those lines. And yes, I had to draw all those little teeny tiny lines in there when I drew it. So now I have to brush stroke all those little bitty lines. That's a lot of little bitty lines. Don't forget the ones that are inside. They're showing layers of fur. You know, if you were representing the different layers of the fur. See, we're starting to get him together. A little bit up from the side here. And down here, and remember, it's the next color that we're going to go under the collar. So just using this darkest color on the pads and the up and down fur. And then the tail, it's the same theory Although honestly, I never color the same thing exactly the same each time, but the pattern and the way I do it are the same. Here is E21. This one is also very, very dark, but we're going to try to go in between the areas where we put that other color so we can start building those layers up. The more you do it, the more comfortable you become, the easier it is to do it. Until you get used to it, it will take some time. Now this area right here is going to kind of go on the top of his head in this direction. We try to stay in the same direction every time. So these brush strokes will go towards that, those will go towards this part, so that we can keep them all going correctly. We're going to do a little bit up from here, just like we did before. And then this one, we're going to go down from his mouth. Leaving that little bit of his mouth alone. And then we're going to do from his collar in the direction of the fur. Remember, don't color the bone. We'll make this bone white as well. That way they stay exactly the same. So you can see the variation the same in both colors. And honestly, it doesn't have to be perfect. So just try to get those brush strokes in between where you put the last ones, just so that you can see all the variations of brush strokes. That is the important part. To show the texture, that is the important part. This process does take a little while, which is why I wasn't going to color all of the girl image, but I really wanted you to see what it looks like. I'm going to come up here and add just a few more up here. I want to keep him kind of dark. I want to color in a little bit more of his nose. Oops, I missed. See, that's what I mean by light. You think you touched it, but you didn't touch it. You didn't touch the paper. Okay, we have one more color, and then we have this one and one more. So this one will get a little bit more filled in, but you will also be leaving space for the lightest color. So let's work that nose piece just a little bit. I want his nose to be more solid and the rest of him to look like fur. He's going to be a little bit lighter than our black dog, and I'm okay with that. That's why I wanted to show you both colors. So I thought it was kind of important to see both types of colors. You know, all day I thought it was Friday today. Did anyone else think it was Friday? I thought it was Friday all day today. I was like, oh, I don't have to get up for anything tomorrow because it's going to be Saturday. It's not. Tomorrow is Friday. So confused. That's what happens when you travel and in a different time zone. You get very confused on where you are and what the time zone is. So we're leaving just the highlight areas open for the last color. The rest of it gets colored in with this one. Making sure there is no coloring back and forth like this because we do not want to blend. We just want the brush strokes. These little paws are going to be darker than the rest of him, just like I did with the white or the gray, I mean. There we go. And now we have one more color. I mean, look at that. When you're building it, it doesn't look that great, but when you get done, you're like, wow, I love it. E23, again, no back and forth. We're not blending. We're just adding this last color where the white is left on the image. So even all the way up to the eyes, we're adding this color. This is the last brown that we're going to use to finish this up. Filling those in. We're also going to do his bottom lip that color. There we go. White areas only and not the bone. You can use this same theory on hair if you'd like to really show the strands of hair. You would get the same idea. Your days are all mixed up too. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Same thing on this one. I'm just going to use this R46 for his collar, and I'm just kind of dotting it in because I don't want it to be even all the way across. We need to do our multi-liner and then our bone. So 0.25 is what we're going to do his eyes. If you happen to color in that little white dot, don't worry. We're going to use the white gel pen to bring that back. So it's okay if you mess that up. Don't freak out. It's okay. All right, so now we can really see his eyes. Let's put his little nostrils in his nose so we can see those too. There we go. And then we're going to use the white gel pen just like we did on the other one for the bone. And then for the white part of his eyes and that really tiny area over his nose. Maybe that was a little bit too much on his nose. So the cheat sheet for that is if you have tweezers with really, really fine tip like this, you can actually take that white gel pen off with it. So if you get it too thick or not in the right place, you just kind of scrape it and it comes off. And then you have it exactly the size that you want. So it's great. It's perfect. So if you want your Toto dog to be brown, he would be this one. If you want him to be black, he could be this one. And this is the warm grays, so he looks, you know, more gray than black. But if you use the C's, you could get a very dark brown. But I like the brown one. I like the black one too. I can't decide. I like them both. Anyway, that is fur. That is how you do fur. Follow the design, get your brush strokes in there, use tiny flicks the whole time that you're doing it so that you can see all of those little brush strokes in there and it looks like fur. It just comes together and looks like fur. It builds itself. If you didn't want to do that, you could definitely color it a smooth like this one where you don't have any brush strokes. You could just color him just solid. Whatever works for you. I like to give them fur because they're furry, but that's up to you. So there's the dogs. Now back to the girls. We're going to do the hair, and I'll probably, I don't know if I'll do them all or not. Depends on how fast it goes. I'm going to use the same colors I used for the dog on the hair for the girls. So I'm going to back up just a little bit so we can do a couple of them, so we can do them all at the same time. I'm going to start off with E49, and we're going to do whatever is up under her face. And then these little center parts of the braids will remain really dark because that's where all the shadow is. Then brush strokes down from the bow. Same thing on this side, whatever's closest to her face. And then these parts that go with the braids. They need to stay very dark because that is where your shadow is. That is where it needs to be. Aw, thanks. Someone said your coloring is always amazing. So sweet. You guys are so sweet. This separation of hair here, it's like she has some bangs here, so I'm going to do the brush strokes down from underneath that. And then this is the center part of her hair. Oh my gosh, what do you call that? The part. So I'm going to do brush strokes down from the part. This hair is flinging over this back one, so I put the artist drawn lines in there so you could see that that was going to be overlapping, so we put the dark in there as well. On this side, we need the tiny little brush strokes as well from the part because that is where the darkest part of your hair is. Now, anything along the side of this face is all going to be shadowed. So we're just going to draw that in real quick. I'm also going to put one little mark right there. There we go. That is step one. And we're going to do the same thing on every single one of these. So this part that's up close to her face, under her ear, and then the braid pieces, which are pretty easy to do, but look so impactful when you get done. If you put that really dark color in there. I may cut down on the number of colors I put in here versus how many I put in the dog. I think we can get away with one less, especially since we're just trying to see what the skin looks like in comparison once you have the image colored. So we got to have the skin or we can't see it. We don't necessarily have to do the shoes, so to speak, but we definitely have to do this part. Right here, same behind that. And then the part, just brush strokes. I'm not necessarily staying along the artist drawn lines. I'm just putting them in there. Kind of the same way I did when I drew it. Just getting some lines in there. Along the side of her face. And then I like to put just a little bit right there. Same thing, both of them. Fairly the same. But you can see the skin tone change in that. You're going to be able to see it so much more when the hair is done. And that is what I really want you to see. So hopefully you can stick around and check it out. We're almost done. Once we finish the hair, we will be done. I probably won't go through and finish the dress and all that stuff because I think you guys get that part. It's not the complicated part. And it won't change the look of anything. So I think we're good with getting the hair done, and then that way you'll be able to really see those skin tones. That's why we have to do this one as well, because you need to be able to see it against the hair. There we go, from the part out, and this side from the part out. Along this side of her face, because that part would all be shadowed by this hair sticking out over here. Kind of built in that. And yep, I did that part. Okay, so now we have all these the same. I would love to see you color curly hair. Oh, I can do that too. I got different ways of doing curly hair. So, depending on how long you want to take with it. But I can definitely put that on the list of what you want to see. In fact, I'll write it down right now. Curly hair. All right, it's on my list to add to a future a future show. Okay. We are going to have to use E29 because we need to put it on her eyebrows. So I'm just going to very carefully draw the underside, if possible, leaving a little bit of area at the top for me to put the lightest color. So you'll be able to see a variation in her eyebrows. That's the plan. If it goes wrong, it's okay. A lot of people's eyebrows are darker than the rest of their hair. They don't dye their eyebrows, so all is good. Pretty sure they didn't do that back then anyway, so we're golden. Okay, so now I'm going to start building in more around the edges of these braids. So just at the top and just at the bottom. Just kind of add just a little bit of color, not a lot, just a teeny bit. And then for this part, I'm going to go up from the bottom instead of down from the top. And that'll start building in these strands of hair right here. And then I'm just doing like where this braid would tuck under this braid tucks under that braid, this one tucks under that one, and that one's pretty close up there. And then we're going to do in between, just like we did with the fur, trying to go in between the brush strokes that we already put. You got to go up towards that, and this one is coming down towards the braid, so you have to stay in that direction. That is the most important part. And then this part right here, this is where we're going to start building in that little bit of color. So in between, if possible, just get some brush strokes in there. There we go. Starting to build that in a little bit. I feel like we need a little bit more there. It's too light. This one I'll do in between those layers. I went a little thick on that one. That's what happens when you can't hold your marker upright. And then for these sides, I'm going to go under each layer. That one that's close to her face needs to just be dark. The undersides. So there we go. Well, we should do out a little bit from here. There we go. And then we're going to do the same thing with the other ones. So you can see them starting to build in there. So I'm going to do this a little bit quick around those tops that are tucking into each one. And then up from the bottom. So when you get used to doing this, you can do it a lot faster. Since we're doing 3 of them and I explained it, you'll be able to keep up with me on what I'm doing. Down here, up here. Stay in that direction. Then these parts right here, because they're showing our hair separating in different layers, I want to show that as well. Then this way, I'll do this one first so you can see it. Right there, underneath, then a little bit out from each one here, and one more. And now we have these two that look fairly close to the same. So one more, and we'll be ready to move on. I'm going to try to do just a little bit with the next color and then go to the lightest color. I feel like we need a transition though, so I'm gonna have to use all the colors. But we can try to skip one. I just don't know if I can. But honestly, this won't take that long. We're almost done. Underneath there, under each one of those braids of hair, then down from here. We got one more side. Once you get used to this, you can do it fast too. You just have to practice. Three hairs. Done. Okay, I'm going to use just a little bit of this E25 to build in around the outside of these areas. So I'm just going to do the edges with this one. Not going to do any other blending, just the edges here. Edges, edges, and a little bit down from that. I am going to do a little bit up from the bottom because I want to keep my highlight right here. So I needed to fill in just a little bit of this with this color. And then our last stroke will keep the highlight. Our last color will keep the highlight. Around the edges. I forgot the other side. There we go. And then this is all up underneath, so there isn't going to be any highlight on that. I will leave some here, but I need to do around the outside of this hair. There we go. That leaves us a little bit of room for the last color. So let me get this one done super quick, because we're just going to do the same exact thing. The braids are really easy, but they look so good when they get done. If you take the time to do each little braid in those center sections with the darkest color, it's such an impact when you get done. We're going to do the eyebrows, the rest of the eyebrows with the last color. That's why I have not done that part yet. Around the outside. From here. All of this is underneath. Next, all this is underneath. I'm just going to start from a different section. It's the same thing. Around the outside. This one I had a little more hair available to color on. I told you they never look exactly the same, but you get the idea. This girl may have a little bit darker hair, but that's okay because her skin is a little bit darker as well. All right, around the edges. And this side too. Last color, super simple. Last color is just blending that together. So going over the white areas just like we did with the puppy. Not really blending, so to speak, just adding the highlight color. You really only need like one sweep over it to keep it very light and bright and blended. I'm going to do the top part of her eyebrow with this color. Then I'm going to go over here. Blend that out. I want to keep that pretty light right there. Same thing on here. Just filling in the white. And pow, she is done. So the last color is always the easiest if you took your time and worked through the steps in the lower part. As you can see, her braids look really good. There's highlights, there's dark areas. Same thing on this. I like this color brown. It's really pretty if you add red to it too. Like if you add one red color in the middle, then you get auburn hair. I like auburn hair. There we go. 3 girls. Look at the skin tones. They are so different. This is really what you're looking at. This is the extremely light skin tone. This is the medium one. There's definitely a difference between the two. Really, really light, medium. This is generally the one I do. And sometimes I like it to be just a little bit darker. All of them look good. All of them look pretty. It just depends on what you want. You can definitely see it in the legs as well. Darker, lighter. So we have our girls. I mean, aren't they fun? How easy is that? You just have to practice, and you should be able to do it too. So this will be her dog. This could be her dog. Fur. And you kind of got hair too. Fur, hair, skin, eyes. What do you think? Was that helpful? Would you like to see it again sometime, broken down, like maybe a YouTube short that just did like the face, or, you know, the dog or the cat or the whatever, you know what I mean? Let me know if there's other stuff that you would like to see. I am more than happy to do this. I've been coloring these for different, you know, images for a very long time, and I don't mind at all. I want to try to put them so you can see them all at the same time. There we go. There we go. So if you wanted to really make this look like Dorothy, you could always use a white gel pen and put a cross hatch in there if you wanted her dress to have that. She looked really good with her little red shoes and all that. I'll finish her up at some point and then, you know, show them all to you guys. But super, super fun. I love it. If you guys feel like you want to see this again, let me know. I can also blow the image up since I drew it and make it a little bit bigger, easier to see, a little bit easier to follow, a little easier to color. So if you want me to do a larger version of that, I could put it out on YouTube, but just let me know. Anyway, I hope you guys had a great time. I hope that you learned a lot. I hope that you'll try it. Feel free to share in the Fans of Doux Designs group on Facebook. If you make something or practice or color, it's okay to share it if it's not completed. I usually just put like a marker over it so nobody can take the image if it's not colored. But other than that, feel free to share. I would love to see you guys' coloring. And if you just don't want to post on social media, then you can just send it to me in a PM, email, or whatever you want if you just want to share. So thank you so much for joining me. I will see you guys on Tuesday of next week, Tuesday and Thursday, 8:30 Central here on Facebook. And if you're watching the replay on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe, especially subscribe, because we really need to build that channel. So thank you and good night, everyone. Have a great weekend.